The small things that you avoid collect in your closet. In the closet, they turn into a monster. And then one day when you're weak, they come leaping out of the closet and devour you. That's an ancient story. Everything you've encountered in your life that you don't understand is traumatic to some degree, merely because you don't understand it. It's unmapped. You haven't coped with it properly. You don't know how to deal with it. All of those things are tagged pretty much forever with anxiety. The great hero creators of the cosmos in the mythological world are always those who face the dragon of chaos, who cut it into pieces and make the world out of the pieces. It's the oldest story we know. It's the dragon fight in its most fundamental sense. A dragon is a monster that's composed of monstrous parts. A monster is an aggregate of the incomprehensible. That's a good way of thinking about it. Everything that's happened to you that's incomprehensible is going to be part of that monster.
What would you say the secret to a successful marriage is?
Being insanely attracted to your partner is helpful. More practically speaking, we swore when we decided to get married that we tell each other the truth. It's very useful to be able to trust your partner. It makes your life a lot simpler. Plus, you sort things out if you tell each other the truth. There's no difference between conflict when it's necessary and thinking. They're the same thing. And so people who avoid conflict avoid thinking, and that's not a good idea. Life's difficult. Might as well sort it out. Even after years of practicing this with Tammy, I still have to stifle my proclivity to leap to the solution. You want to solve the right problem, man. And my experience as a therapist indicated to me that people need to spend at least 90 minutes a week talking to each other just about their lives, just about the domestic economy, about their kids, about their relationship, just to keep everything up to date. And it's very difficult to have any true intimacy if that isn't allowed for. Since 1960, we've insisted that the purpose of your life is a kind of hedonistic happiness, that you have rights, which includes the rights to that hedonistic happiness. The capitalist marketers certainly capitalize on that, just as much as the governmental tyrants. Rights, 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 what I want right now. That idea of infantile consumption, fundamentally. You have rights for a particular reason, and the reason you have rights is so that you can shoulder your responsibilities. And you might say, well, I don't want to shoulder my responsibilities, but that's where all the meaning in your life is. And so when I tell people this, the audiences always go dead silent. It's like the adventure in your life will be found in responsibility. No one ever hears that. We haven't told young people that for 60 years. Your character is made noble by sacrifice, by the delay of gratification. That's all associated with maturity. The community itself requires sacrifice on the part of the individual. To be in a community is to sacrifice your individuality to the community. It's the definition of community. You said that there was a relationship between childhood experiences and the traumatic experiences that you were describing.
It's a trend that I see when I talk to gents about this type of stuff. It always seems to go back to childhood.
That's what Freud observed. Everything you've encountered in your life that you don't understand is traumatic to some degree, merely because you don't understand it. It's unmapped. You haven't coped with it properly. You don't know how to deal with it. You have to make the world out of that. The great hero creators of the cosmos in the mythological world are always those who face the dragon of chaos, who cut it into pieces and make the world out of the pieces. A monster is an aggregate of the incomprehensible. Everything that's happened to you that's incomprehensible is going to be part of that monster.
The lecture that you gave about how the Bible references itself approximately 65,000 times, and you had a great visual, which
it's a great visual, eh?
It was very captivating, and
Well, the first thing we could say is that the Bible is the world's first hyperlinked text, because many of the verses refer to many other verses. And that means it's a very complicated text because you can find your way through it many, many ways. Like the more a text is cross-referenced, the more pathways through it there are. You can imagine that explodes exponentially. You might say, well, what does a Bible verse mean? And the answer is, well, it means whatever it means in reference to all of its cross-references. And then each of those cross-references has cross-references. No idea exists independently. It exists in a web of ideas. That web is something like the statistical probability that another idea will co-occur with that idea.
But you've studied it for so long. Do you believe in it?
Well, I believe in it in the way that we just described. Do I believe that the truth sets you free? Absolutely. It isn't that I believe it even. I know it's true. And I try to live in that knowledge. It's very difficult to only think or say things that are true, but you can practice it. And it's a great relief. Well, as you pointed out, you don't have to keep track of anything. That's just that in and of itself is
It's freeing.
That's for sure. Do I believe that Christ is the way and the life and that no one comes to the Father but through him? Sure. But I also know what that means. Imagine that you want to have the Spirit of the Almighty dwell within you in this Old Testament manner. How do you do that? By taking the burden of life on yourself voluntarily. Why? Because that causes the best within you to make itself manifest. You know that. Why did you push yourself on the military front? Why did you go become a Navy SEAL? That's a ridiculous thing to do, right? They just torture you to death in the water. Why'd you do it?
Because I wanted to serve my country in the highest capacity possible.
So you believed that there was a highest capacity,
Yes.
right? So that was an element of faith. And so personally, you put yourself through this brutal transformative process. How did that change you?
In a lot of ways, there was a lot of pride involved. And when I graduated from that, I never felt more pride. I always felt that I had fallen short in childhood, and I wanted my parents to have something to be proud of.
Okay, so let's separate pride from accomplishment. Do you feel that you accomplished something real when you went through the Navy SEAL training program?
Absolutely.
Okay, why was it real?
It was the hardest thing that I've done.
That's right. Yeah. Was it meaningful?
Absolutely.
Was it transformative?
Yes.
And it was the hardest thing you'd ever done. The pathway to what's most real is through the hardest things that you can do. If you lie habitually about something, that's the world you come to inhabit. If you do that with enough heart, let's say, you can live in a delusion. Then your perception of the world doesn't match the world. That's like having a map of the wrong territory. And then you get lost like that, you get bitter, and then you get resentful, and then all the real hell starts to break out. It's a very bad idea.
It is. I see people do it all the time on social media. They lie about their background. They lie about what they own. They lie about past experiences. They lie about what happened in war, and they build this character. I see it time and time again with social media phenomenons. Then I see them get trapped. This has happened to friends of mine that build a character around themselves rather than just be themselves. I'm sad for them that they put on that false cloak every day. It carries on for years and years and years. I see how exhausted they are.
It's very difficult to maintain a structure built on lies. Eh?
You lose track of them.
Well, that's for sure. No kidding. It's possible that social media enables the psychopaths. What's the psychological makeup of LOL troll posters? These are people who are doing it for the laughs, doing it for the lulls, just causing trouble. Ha ha ha. They're psychopathic. So that means they're predatory parasites. People need a slap.
Yes, they do.
They certainly do. There's no way of administering said slap. And so one of the consequences of that, for example, many psychological commentators had made this point. Twitter devolves into female aggression. Twitter enables gossip, reputation, savaging, and innuendo, unconstrained. These are unbelievably powerful communication systems. You know, you can write something casual that 1 million people will read. Well, maybe you shouldn't ever write something casual that 1 million people should read. I wouldn't say that I'm at my best on Twitter. What's the downside? You're immersed in this responsibilityless landscape of casual speech where all the psychopaths come out to play.
People have put so much faith into political parties, political candidates. They refuse to look at or admit wrongdoings of anybody that they back. You have the right calling the left sheep, and they're doing the same thing. This is what this person did, and they will dismiss it. It's like we've lost all critical thinking skills in the world, it seems like to me.
The new technologies flattened the information hierarchy so that everybody can communicate with everyone. Everyone's now a journalist. That might be too many journalists. You know, we've radically expanded the degree to which we're connected with people. A lot of the people that aggregate together online, they wouldn't have a single friend in the actual real world. You know, your typical basement-dwelling, resentful keyboard warrior. It's like if he was left to his own devices without this technological intermediation, he'd have zero impact on anything because no one can stand being around him. But he's magnified madly online and can aggregate with other people. What are you trying to do in this discussion? You're trying to have an honest discussion. Mm-hmm. Okay, why?
I want to learn from you.
Why?
I want to improve my life.
And you're bringing other people along on that trip.
Yes.
Why is it useful to bring other people along?
Because it improves their life.
Is there something meaningful in that for you?
Absolutely.
In these discussions that you're having with the people you bring on here, like you said, you're trying to learn. So you're trying to shed your stupidity and move uphill. But at the same time you're doing that, you're engaged in a communal endeavor because you're helping other people do that too. And so then you've got this great alignment between what's good for you and what's also good for everyone else. That's a good deal. God comes to Abraham as the voice of adventure, and he makes Abraham a deal. He said, if you abide by the spirit of adventure wholeheartedly, and you make the sacrifices that are necessary, no matter what they are, you'll be a blessing to yourself. Your name will become renowned. You'll establish something permanent that's good, and you'll do it in a way that's good for everyone else. And that's all aligned with that spirit of adventure. Now that's a good deal. If you could have what you wanted and needed that would satisfy you, what would that be? Well, that's a complicated question. People have a hard time answering that. You can have what you want and need within the bounds of reason in 5 years, but you have to specify it. The present authoring program helps people identify their faults and virtues, and then there's a future authoring program that helps you lay out a pathway to the future. If a young man does the future authoring program, when he goes to college, he's 50% less likely to drop out. 50% is a lot. Mm-hmm. And a vision for your future is the structure that provides you with hope and that regulates your negative emotion, because it specifies a goal. Once a goal is specified, you feel positive emotion in relationship to the goal. And your anxiety is constrained because you have a direction. You're anxious when you have way too many directions. The pathways through life collapsed to a single implementable dimension. So you need a vision. This isn't optional. People are very bad at this. We're very bad in our culture at helping people develop a vision. You don't want everything to be connected to everything else. I mean, that's part of the pathology of the modern world. We're connecting everything together. That's a little too much connection. It's insanity making. We may be driving ourselves mad with the interconnectivity online. It's a great way of educating yourself. It's a great way of having access to information. But I'll tell you, man, it's a great way of being connected to all sorts of things you don't want to be connected to. And it isn't obvious which of those is going to get the upper hand. It isn't obvious to me that Twitter could be good. Twitter is speech without responsibility. Speech without responsibility might be fatal. I'm saying that as an advocate of free speech, but there's a very big difference between free speech on Twitter and the free speech you and I are engaging in right now. Like, you're sitting right there. There's a lot of things that I'm not going to say to you. Like, not because I'm hiding, but like I'm going to be polite.
There would be an immediate consequence.
There would. Definitely.
There is no immediate consequence on Twitter.
Worse, the consequence of being psychopathic might be positive on Twitter. The female myth is Beauty and the Beast. In the Disney movie Beauty and the Beast, the woman, who's quite a stellar character, she's beautiful and she's wise and she's intelligent, she has her choice. She's got loser, the village men. She's got narcissist, that's Gaston. And she's got beast. Now, stupid women like narcissists. Naive women like narcissists because they confuse their narcissism with competence and confidence. And that's how narcissists exploit. They look like they're competent. Gaston is after her, wants to charm her. She goes for the beast. He's a traumatized monster even, but she hopes that he's tameable, that she can bring him into relationship. Like, a good beast has options, but he'll forgo the options for the relationship. That's the female sexual fantasy. Now, that's rough, right? Because how likely is it that you're going to be able to tame a beast? Not that likely, but pretty damn useful if you can do it. Then you have someone who can keep the real beasts at bay. Like, women have to negotiate a very tight line because they're looking for men who are disagreeable enough to be able to tell the monsters to go to hell, but who are generous and productive enough to share.